Hello IGCSE Year 10 students. This is Mr. Ken once again, and today I want to teach you something to do with interviews. Then at the end of the slides, we'll get a practice question on an interview that will guide you on what you're supposed to do. So let's start with the first things first. What is an interview? What do you understand by the term interview? Now, I'll start by saying this. An interview is essentially a structured conversation. An interview is what we call a structured conversation where one participant asks question and the other provides answers. So what we're trying to say is that simply the term interview refers to a conversation, in most cases structured, where one participant asks questions and the other one provides the answers. One asks the question, the other one provides the answers. In common parlance, in common society, in lay language, the word interview refers to a one-on-one conversation between the interviewer and the interviewee. In very simple language, in common day-to-day language, the word interview refers to a one-on-one conversation between the interviewer and the interviewee. The interviewer is the one asking the questions. The interviewee is the one who responds to the questions. So in normal day-to-day language, it's just a one-on-one conversation between an interviewer and an interviewee. There are three types of interviews that I would like us to learn from today. There are three types of interviews that I would love you to know. One, we have what we call the unstructured interview. The second one is called the structured interview. And the third one is the semi-structured interview. Types of interviews. One, structured interview. Secondly, unstructured. Interview. Third one, semi-structured interview. So there are three types of interviews. We have the structured interview, the unstructured interview, and the semi-structured interview. So there are three types of interviews. I'll take you through each one of them one by one so that we understand the types of interviews we are supposed to learn in this topic. We'll start with the structured interview. What is a structured interview? Now, a structured interview is a quantitative research method commonly employed in survey research. When you're doing a survey on a particular product, or you're doing a survey on a particular subject, you use what we call a structured interview. A structured interview, that's what we call it. A structured interview is a quantitative research method commonly employed in survey research. Now, in simple language, the aim of this approach is to ensure that each interview is presented with exactly the same questions and the same order. When you want to carry out a research on how clients view a particular hotel, you can use a structured interview, whereby you use the same questions and in the same order, because you seek to get a particular kind of response, a particular kind of answers. It is structured. The questions are structured in such a way that they are able to capture a particular type of information. Hope you understand by there. It is simply a very organized form of interview. We call it structured. The aim of the approach is to ensure that each interview is presented with exactly the same questions and in the same order. A structured interview, also known as a standardized interview or a research administered survey, is a quantitative research method commonly employed in survey research. So when you want to survey, when you want to get information on a particular subject, when you want to get opinion polls before an election, you use a structured interview. When you want to get the samples, the survey, the population census within a country, you use a structured interview. So a structured interview is also called a standardized interview, and it is very organized in the way it is administered. The aim of this approach is to ensure that each interview is presented with exactly the same questions and in the same order. Like I told you, I have a small picture there telling us more about a structured interview. One, it is it's a useful tool of quantitative research. Number two, it is often used in social survey. You want to survey the population on a particular topic, you use a structured interview. Standardized interviews schedule. Each interviewee gets the same questions in the same way, in the same order. If you want to collect census, they'll come, they'll ask, how many are you in your family? Where do you work? The same questions, the same order. Closed, preoccupied, or fixed choice questions. It minimizes variation between interviews. Simply, that's what we're talking about. There's another picture there. Definition, type, pros and cons. That is a form of an interview being conducted, which is a structured interview. Secondly, I want us to look at what we call unstructured interview. This second type of interview. So this one is structured or standardized. Now let's look at the unstructured interview. What do they mean when they say an interview is unstructured? An unstructured interview or non-directive interview is an interview in which questions are not prearranged. The questions are not prearranged. You do not set questions with the intention of getting a particular information. When an interview is unstructured or non-directive, it does not direct you on what you're supposed to respond. It's an interview whereby questions are not prearranged. Questions are not prearranged. Questions are not predetermined. They're not prearranged. These non-directive interviews are considered to be the opposite of a structured interview, which offers a set amount of standardized questions. Now, the non-directive interviews are considered to be the opposite of a structured interview. It's the opposite, actually. Opposite standardized is very deliberate. The questions are structured the same way, the same order. But in an unstandardized or unstructured interview, the interviews are considered to be the opposite of the structured interview, which offers a set amount of standardized questions. It gives you a set amount of standardized questions. So it is simply the opposite. An unstructured interview is an interview in which there is no specific set of predetermined questions. Although the interviewers usually have certain topics in mind that they wish to cover during the interview. So simply, that's where the difference is. An unstructured interview is an interview in which there is no specific set of predetermined questions. Although the interviewers usually have certain topics in mind that they wish to cover during the interview. There's a picture there, simply it's unstructured. Someone came in, probably they're in a restaurant, and there he goes, shoot the question. It's unstructured. Probably there's no formal order, there's no structured questions. It is just open. It is non-directive. It is simply allows the respondent to give her own views, and it also gives the interviewer ample time to ask any questions he might wish to ask. So we shall continue from there and look at the unstructured interview.